Okay, so here we go in episode 4, and this is called The Flow. And the focus this time in this Electric Human episode is about the flow of energy. And there's many things, of course, that could be said about that, but we want to focus on a couple of aspects in this episode that I think are really important at this time. First of all, it's interesting to look at this word, right? Flow. Flow. And then think about the pronunciation and then how you pronounce this word. Why don't we call it a flower? It's literally written as if it's something that flows. A flow, a flower, a flower. And here's an interesting thing to do to experiment with your sensitivity. If you're in a garden or next time you're in a park or forest, if you can get a flower and pass the flower over your hand, back and forth with the stem pointed at your hand. Go slowly and you'll feel an energy coming out of the stem of the flower and hitting your hand. It's not difficult to feel. Different colored flowers, you will feel a different type of energy coming out of the stem of the flower. So a flower really is a flower. It's a flower. And what it does is the head of the flower is catching force out of the atmosphere, force from the sun, and it's transmitting it down. The stem is like a cable and it's transmitting it down into the earth. So the earth is accumulating energy and power of many different types through its organic life, including us. We also have a head and a stem, which is our brain and the spine. And it's the same system, except a flower is pointed to the sun, whereas a human can not only receive from the sun, but also from the stars and from the galactic center of these energies, catch, bring down into our own system, and then out into the atmosphere of the earth. And so that is actually part of the human purpose. So we are also flowers. We are meant to flow. And isn't it true that you have a beautiful day, everything flows, you say, how was your day, or some event or something you have to resolve. And we always hope that things flow well. We feel great when things flow well. We say, that flowed really well. And literally there are two different ways of seeing currents of force. One is on the horizontal vector, and one is on the vertical vector. Now, on the horizontal vector, it's a question of flowing well with planetary energies and with other people and with atmospheres and places and things that we have to resolve. When people are doing Tai Chi, when people are doing Qigong, when people are using acupuncture or acupressure to resolve the flow of energy in their system or to get that flow flowing more easily and smoothly, they're looking at the horizontal flow. They're looking at the horizontal flow because these are energies that we should be processing easily, smoothly, and naturally. And when we're not, sickness develops. We talked about this in the last episode to do with the river, where it gets stagnant, where it gets stopped. The pollution, the stagnation causes kind of lowering of the astral energy. And it's the same with us. This is why sometimes all we want to do is go for a walk, or we want to get out to walk along the beach or in a park or somewhere, because that movement, that continuous movement is a flow, and we start to kind of free up and loosen up stagnated bits and energy starts to flow again. Why a lot of people feel their thoughts start to run and they start to get a clearer mind. Just going for a small walk, 15, 20-minute walk, can do wonders. So it's not only physical health, it's electrically things start to move and flow. So on this horizontal plane, there's a lot to consider that we're not going to go into here. But one of the important areas, of course, is to do with relationships. And we can be in this flow. We can be flowing with a certain type of energy. But we do have different grades of energy, and we have different natures of energy, which are to do with the 5 power centers connected with the 5 fingers. What does this mean? It means that if I'm flowing in a kind of frequency, let's say yellow, and then I meet with somebody and they're on a different frequency, let's say red, there's going to be there's a word in Portuguese, desencontro. I'm trying to find the right word in English. I'm forgetting my English and I haven't learned Portuguese correctly yet. It's a kind of mismatch of frequency and tones. Just like certain colors don't go together, do they? You put on a shirt and it's got to match the trousers, and some colors don't match. They sort of can even look a bit revolting. If you have energy that's on a different frequency, I'll give an example of this. Yellow frequency energy is emotional energy, and it makes you feel very soft, makes you feel very sensitive. Some people are inclined to it, so we think this person's sensitive. Some people feel very sensitive because this energy is a bit swells out, is a bit fuller in their system. Red energy, on the other hand, is used for doing things, action, physical action. So if I'm going to lift something up or do some building or something like this, I'm going to be pulling on this red energy. So now let's say had a busy day, I've been in traffic, I've been grabbing things, I've been carrying things, I'm full of red energy. And I'm going to speak to my partner, and she has been reading poetry, talking to her grandmother, maybe doing some cooking, maybe doing something in the garden, something that's a more soft, sensitive, sensing type of process that's got her in yellow. The red and yellow are going to shock. For the yellow, the red is going to seem too aggressive, it's going to seem too hard, and the person seems to be insensitive, which they will be because red makes you less sensitive. For the person who's in red, they're going to feel that the yellow is too sensitive and you can't say anything without upsetting them. And you often get this in relationships. And there's only two colors that still need to be understood better. You've still got green, you've still got orange, you've still got purple, pink, all these frequencies a person can be in, and then they suddenly don't understand why they're not connecting or able to converse with another person. You're very lucky in this life if you've got 2 or 3 or 4 good friends or people that you can easily tune into and have a good conversation, good connection, because often where we are, we can't tune in. And it's not that there's a good or bad in that, it's just simply different frequencies. So in terms of flow, one of the solutions is to keep practicing neutrality and listening and coming to a stop. Because when you come to a stop and you pause and you go neutral, you can tune to another person's frequency. You don't have to necessarily dive totally into it or engage totally in it, but you can kind of get where they're coming from better. This is why therapists and doctors and people like that, they wear white, which helps move you into a neutral state. And the idea of is that they're neutral, they're good listeners, right? So it's something that's worth practicing, because otherwise we're waiting for other people to tune to us. But of course, this is information and understanding that's not really clearly understood yet in the world. So it's good to take it up and apply for oneself. So it's interesting to practice it, go neutral. If you think of the color white or even wearing white, imagine yourself in a white clothes. It helps you get to a neutral state. From neutral, you can sense where a person is and adjust more easily to their frequency. And so whilst other times you may want to say to the person, look, I'm full of something. I want to just keep flowing with it. Could you just let me speak out some ideas? And if you've got a friend or somebody who cares about you, they'll let you do that and you can flow. Another reason why it's good to keep a journal, write things down, because when you write, you flow, it flows out. And so very interesting that often teenagers, young people have this urge to write and keep a journal, because they're trying to continue a natural flow that was occurring when they were children. And it starts to get lost as you go into the big adult world. So they try to continue it with writing. And often it's abandoned as they get into late teens, because you basically have to engage with people. It's all going on, and it's very hard to keep that inner flow going on. But it's very important to keep that inner flow going on, this flow of you with life and what you're feeling and the energies that are running through that day, that you're in harmony with them. So you step into the flow of a day and you stay with it. So the only other element I wanted to speak about, there's obviously a lot in this area of the flow, is again about the horizontal, which we've been talking about, but now the vertical. Now we're going into the age of Aquarius, and the symbol of Aquarius is the water bearer turning over the pot, and this what seems to be water flowing out. The Maya also had a symbol of this, of the coming epoch, this prophecy of theirs, and they also show a container being tilted and what seems to be water coming out. But it's not water, it's actually energy, it's actually force. And what this is saying, what I'm trying to say here, what I'm trying to bring up, is one thing to have force to do with moving about on the planet and relationships and our day by day. It's another thing to be aware that there's a force coming in vertically, or in other words, down upon us. And there's a lot of evidence that this is the case. A lot of people are detecting more cosmic energy starting to come into the planet. And if you think about it, it's a way that the universe can upgrade and refine the situation here. Hopefully cause a detox. You know, one way you can clean out something is you just keep pouring the clean liquid or substance in, and it starts flushing out the old, doesn't it? And I believe this is happening now for the planet and for the human race. There's this vertical influx of finer energy, stronger energy, fresh energy. Unfortunately, the state of the world, state of the astral light, state of the aura, people are very lost in different pockets of electrical bubbles and not necessarily feeling this energy. I think there are a lot of people who are feeling it, and I think there's a lot of people that are not feeling it. But what I'm saying here is that life and business is not just as always. Something is starting to come in on the vertical vector. And this is the reason for the strange hats in Egypt. And think how many times you'll see a solar disk. I just did a meeting yesterday, actually, exclusively about the solar disk. It's all through Egypt, the solar disk. They were showing that they're plugged into the vertical flow of energy coming from the sun, not the heat and light, but the spiritual dimension of the sun. The spiritual dimension of the sun, Gurdjieff called the most holy sun absolute. And he's aware, as many people have been aware, the Egyptians and the Incas, that there's a spiritual dimension to the sun. Just like if you see a person, they've got thermal heat, you can see them. You could sum up and say, well, I know that person, but you don't know their essence. You don't know their spirit. This takes more work. And there is this dimension to our sun. There's this dimension to the stars. There's this dimension to the galaxy. And in the dimension, science is obsessed with measuring the outer dimension, which the machines and measurements are fantastic in doing. But in the end, you end up it's like measuring a person. They're this tall, they're this color, they've got this much hair. There's a point you want to go beyond that into the character and the depth and the essence and spirit of the person, isn't there? You don't want to just get a bunch of physical characteristics. So what I'm saying is this force is starting to come in. It can affect the mind and it can affect the feelings and it will affect the body as well. But it's coming in this direction. So mindset and attitude has been talked about so much, interestingly enough, the last 20, 30 years. It's all about mindset and attitude and mindfulness. And I think people are picking up on intuitively on the fact that they need to have their mind in the right state to receive this vertical influx of energy. So think about the difference of attitude, going into some event, going somewhere. Someone's got a bad attitude, they've got a closed attitude, they've already got a pre-expectation, and they've got a prejudgment, how it can block the flow of the experience. So open attitude, positive attitude, neutral attitude, real attitude, these mindsets, a growth mindset rather than a closed, fixing, judgmental, critical mindset, all these things are going to become vital to keep that vertical flow of energy coming into our system. So that's a little bit about the flow, the flowers, and we ourselves are part of that experience. We are also flowers. So I hope your flow is flowing well, and we'll see you in the next episode of Electric Human, which is called The Charge.